So what you just saw was a trailer from actually the largest crowdfunded media project in all time. And so it's called The Chosen. If you haven't seen the series, it's available online. And tonight, we have a very, very special guest with us here at the King's Academy. He's actually going to be with us tonight and then also tomorrow to speak in our chapel service. We have the writer, creator, and producer of The Chosen with us tonight. And so I'm going to let him take over and give you the word. But before I do so, I want you to give a big and warm welcome to Dallas Jenkins.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to move up a little bit. I'm thrilled to be here in Florida. I'm coming from the Midwest, and I was excited to be in the paradise, tropical weather paradise of Florida, of West Palm Beach, only to land and get stuck on the terminal because of lightning and rain, so that's been disappointing so far, I just have to tell you that. Not living up to the reputation. But thank you for having me here. I really appreciate this, and it's really moving also just to see you here tonight, because I know this is voluntary. You don't have to come and worship. Tomorrow you'll be there at chapel, where you will have to be there, and I will do my best to share some potentially interesting things as well. But tonight, you don't have to be here, so I appreciate you here to worship. And anytime that I see high school students especially worshiping God, it's exciting to me. So thank you for that, and for blessing me. I'm not a preacher. I'm a storyteller. And so I'm not here tonight to preach a sermon. I've got a few stories for you. It just so happens that the main story that I want to share comes from the Bible, which is the greatest collection of stories ever told. It happens to be that my job, my calling in life, and my career is literally to tell Jesus stories. And that's what The Chosen is. And that's what God called me to do a few years ago. And as has been mentioned before, and The Chosen, I know not all of you have seen it, some of you may not have even heard of it, but several years ago, as I will talk about tomorrow, I will tell you the story tomorrow of how The Chosen was actually birthed from failure. It was birthed from the low point of my career, where I didn't even know if I was going to make another movie in my life, and how God pulled me out of that. I'm going to share that story tomorrow. But as I talk to you right now, what's happened with The Chosen is actually quite cool. As you mentioned earlier, it's the #1 highest crowdfunded media project of all time. It generated over $10 million just based on a short film I did for my church. We are already writing right now season 3. Season 2 came out a couple months ago. The app has been downloaded over 10 million times. We're one of the top 50 apps in the world. We've generated tens of millions of dollars, even though it's a free show, from people who are wanting to contribute to make sure that we can do future episodes and seasons. And it is, by all accounts, one of the biggest success stories in media over the last couple of years. Now, do I tell you that to brag or to toot my own horn or the horn of the show? No, quite the opposite. In fact, what I want to share with you tonight, is how actually very little of what has happened is because of me. As I mentioned just a minute ago, this was actually birthed from failure. And I'm going to talk more about that tomorrow, but even now, almost every single day that we have experienced this project, we have been brought to what my wife calls a Red Sea moment. Okay, so what I want to do is I'd like to read for you this story from Exodus 14. You've probably heard this story before. I'm not going to read the entire thing. I'll skip over a couple spots. But this is from Exodus 14, and this is the story of the parting of the Red Sea. And this will give you context to the story I want to share with you that happened to me earlier this year. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel to turn back and encamp in front of," and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the word, but it's Pi-Hamrioth or something like that, "between Migdol and the sea in front of Baal-Zephon." I don't know why they chose these terms, but it's what's there. "You shall encamp facing it by the sea. For Pharaoh will say to the people of Israel, they are wandering in the land, the wilderness has shut them in, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them, and I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord." So to give you a very quick backdrop, because I got more to read in just a second, is the Egyptians were controlling and oppressing and enslaving the Israelites. And the Israelites had gotten away. And the Israelites were now traveling, and Pharaoh had let them go because of all these plagues that God had placed upon him. And so the Israelites are essentially leaving, getting out of town. They are now free. But God hardens Pharaoh's heart. That's a whole other sermon to talk about. But Pharaoh now is saying, and what God is saying to Moses, here's what's going to happen. Pharaoh is going to get really upset, and he's going to chase you down again. I'm going to harden his heart. He's going to hunt you guys down. And he's going to assume that because you're trapped basically in the wilderness, that he's going to easily grab you, and all of his host, it means all of his armies are going to be able to grab you and bring you back and enslave you again. So then that happens. Pharaoh gets upset, his heart is hardened. So skipping ahead to verse 10 of Exodus 14. When Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them. And they feared greatly. And the people of Israel cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? So we could have died in Egypt, but there's no graves there, so now we're going to die now. That's what this is all about. What have you done to us in bringing us out of Egypt?" They wanted to go back to where they were enslaved. "Is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness." And Moses said to the people, "Fear not, stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians who you see today, you shall never see again." That's so cool. The Egyptians who you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent. Which is really strange. It's not easy for me to be silent. The Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it." Divide the sea. "That the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, so that they shall go in after them. And I will," in the same phrase, "get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, his chariots and his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I have gotten glory," he keeps saying that, "over Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen." So, over the course of the next 10 verses, the Egyptians are pursuing, the Israelites are freaked out, and the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea." So, stretches his hand, the sea parts, the Israelites are walking on dry land, the sea has been divided, the Egyptians coming after them. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots and upon their horsemen." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal course when the morning appeared. Normal course means came down on top of them. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen of all the host of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea. Not one of them remained. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great power of the Lord used against the Egyptians. So the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord. What does that have to do with me? So last year, when we were getting ready to shoot season 2 of The Chosen, we did not have any place to shoot. COVID had hit, and we were wanting to shoot. There was potentially a place overseas that we were looking at. That was shut down. The place that we had filmed season 1 no longer worked because season 2 was at a different location. And we had this opportunity potentially to use this big set in Utah, which is this extraordinary recreation of Jerusalem that they've done in the middle of nowhere in Utah. And we had this potential opportunity to use it. And very long story short, because that's not the point of what I want to share with you, the owners ultimately told us no. And this came after I had visited the set. I had decided when I visited the set, initially I had not wanted to see it because I didn't want to get my hopes up. I didn't want to get excited for something that wasn't going to come. And they still extended me to visit because they said, "Oh, we're considering letting you come, and we think this could be a really cool partnership chosen with the set." I went and I visited, and it was extraordinary. And I felt God really laying strongly on my heart while I was walking on that set that I was going to have an opportunity to tell his stories. and that lives were going to be changed and impacted from what we did on that set. I felt that very strongly and clearly while I was there. And I told my wife that, and I even recorded a video of me saying, I really think that God is putting it in my heart that we're going to change the world, and people are going to be taught and get to know Jesus more because of what we do on this set. And then they said no. And they said no because of COVID protocols and all, a bunch of other reasons, it doesn't really matter. And they said no, and then they said we're actually leaving for the next month and a half. Our organization takes a break for a month and a half. And and so no. And we didn't have a month and a half, so we had to find something quickly. So I told my wife, I said, wife, her name is Amanda, but it doesn't matter to you. So I said, Amanda. They said no. So I guess we're not going to have that set, which is really strange, because I really thought God was going to give that to us. And she said, I just think God is bringing you to the edge of the Red Sea, so that when the waters part, you know it's Him. That whole get glory part. So I chuckled, and I thought, that would be cool. But she still had her faith, because God had laid on her heart the same thing that He had laid on my heart. And when God lays something on my heart, and it doesn't happen right away, I assume God must not have laid that on my heart. I assume I just must have eaten something wrong, and my brain was just playing tricks on me. But my wife is a little bit more secure in that than I am, and so she said no. Again, long story short, because that's not the point of what I'm going to share with you tonight, they ultimately said yes in the next couple weeks, which didn't make any sense because they were all away, but someone who was on vacation ended up watching The Chosen, freaked out about it, said we need to make this happen, and everything happened in about 3 days, so we got the set. And we ended up filming season 2, most of season 2, on that Jerusalem set. Extraordinary. Season 2 has come out. People all over the world have told us that their lives have been changed and will continue to be changed for future seasons. So that's really cool, right? And if I told you the entire story, it would be more cool, but I just gave you the glimpse because of what ended up happening later. So my wife now has this term that we use regularly called Red Sea moment. It's when God takes you to that point where there is nothing left for you to do, so that when the seas part, you will know that it's Him. So flash forward to Texas. So we're now filming the second half of season 2 of The Chosen. And we are going to be filming on this lake in Texas. And we've got this scene, a couple scenes that are going to take place on the Sea of Galilee in Israel. Filming it in Texas. And we've got one day at this lake. And at the end of that day, several of our actors are going to actually leave the project and go back home. One of them even going to Australia, where he lives. And we also had very important scenes filmed that we had to film the next day in a different location, and we only had that location for a certain number of days. So we had to shoot it on this day. We had no other options. And as the day was approaching, the radar kept telling us rain was going to come. And I thought, we're going to be in big trouble, because if rain comes, we can't shoot these scenes, and we're going to be in big trouble. And my wife said, really feel like God's laying on my heart that the weather is not going to impact you on that day. And I chuckled, and I said, well, that's cool. I hope that happens. But each day that we approached, the rain clouds were still on the radar over that day. Here was the other problem that we had building, was it was going to be a fishing tournament on the lake. And so when you're filming something that's supposed to look like first century Israel, and there's motorboats in the background, all fishing, doesn't quite match what you're going for. So we were like, how are we going to do that? Hopefully, in between some of the tournament, we'll be able to film, and maybe we'll angle the cameras away from these motorboats. So that was another fear that we had. Even if the rain didn't come, we're like, what's going to happen? These people are going to be filming in the background. So we get to the set that morning, and my wife texts me and says, looks like the rain is being held back, because she showed me the radar. And on the radar was the rain. Clouds weren't covering our set, which is really cool. And I'm like, yeah, but here's the problem. It's really, really foggy. And it looks like he's put up this picture. So this is a picture of me 3 hours into the day, and we hadn't filmed a single thing yet. Now, when you're filming, you have 12 hours in the day. The first hour is spent everyone getting there, unloading, all of that. The last hour is spent loading back up. Everything, all your equipment and everything. So then you have, and then of course the actors have to get makeup, get their wardrobe on. So you lose 2 hours, so basically you have 10 hours to shoot. And when you have 10 hours to shoot, you are hoping to film about 4 or 5 pages in a day, pages of script. So typically you can get 4 or 5 pages done, and this day we had to get 8 pages of script done. 2 scenes, both of them long, both of them with a lot of dialogue. We're going to take some time. And this is me 3 hours into the day, standing in the middle of the water. I can't see anything 20 yards in front of me or around me. And the fog, it was saying that the fog was going to be there for a couple more hours. So I start texting my wife and I say, we're in trouble. Because yeah, good news, there's no rain. Bad news is, there's so much fog I can't see. And then another hour went by, so now we're 4 hours and we hadn't filmed a single thing. Now, then I sent my wife a text. And just to prove to you that this happened, he's bringing this up. Now, forgive my words that I used. I love Jesus, but I was really upset. So she said, looks like God is holding back. And I said, except it's too foggy to shoot. There's no way, there's no getting around it. We're screwed the next few days. Again, pardon my horrible language. And don't have plan B. I genuinely don't know what to do. So, a couple more hours goes by, and the fog isn't going anywhere. And the radar is telling us that the fog is going to be there till the afternoon. And we're thinking, well, we can't film both scenes in the afternoon. We need the full day for that. So what do? So the writer, one of my co-writers of the show, comes to the set, and he and I break for lunch. So it's 6 hours into the day. We've got essentially 5 hours left to shoot, because again, that last hour is spent packing everything up. I'm like, all right, we're not going to get both of these scenes in. What do? How do we film this? Do we cut one of the scenes? Of course, the actors are devastated. They don't want us to cut them, because these are great scenes. And I don't want to cut these scenes either. And so we're sitting there, well, can we shorten them? How do we simplify? Because we're not going to get it. We can't come back to this place. We have to go to a different location. So we're in big trouble. So he goes back to the hotel to work on trying to find ways to eliminate these scenes. And then we hear more news. The radar is showing that the fog isn't going away till 8 o'clock at night. So the fog will be here all day. We're not going to be able to shoot. So I say to our producer, let's just stay 1 more hour just in case, because we've got nothing else to do anyway, and but it looks like we're not going to make it. So at about the 50-minute mark of 1 more hour, the crew starts to pack up. And the boat that we were going to use, they start pushing the boat back into the dock, the first century Jesus boat we were going to use. And text my wife again. And this is the second round of texts that comes up. And I only included the last part of it, but I said, we're still not shooting. Supposedly it's going to be fog all day now. Tomorrow is brutal. Not great, Bob, which is just a phrase I use from a show. She says, no, it's not. And then here's what she said. Let's thank God that we'll see his faithfulness. Thank him before we see resolution, because that's what he deserves. And I'm like, maybe you didn't hear what I said. It's going to be fog all day. And she's like, no. And she's saying, the equivalent, fear not, stand firm. See the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent. Let's thank God that we'll see his faithfulness. Thank him before we see resolution, because that's what he deserves. So I was silent. Because I had nothing left. See, my way of living life, my way of directing the chosen, is to do a lot of things I'm pretty good at doing things. I'm pretty good at writing, pretty good at directing, pretty good at telling people about the show and getting people excited for the show. But then there's this moment where if you want to do something really great, and if you want to impact lots of people, there's only so much you can do. I'm not capable of that. I'm not good enough for what The Chosen has been doing. The success of The Chosen right now is not something I'm capable of. I'm not that good. Pretty good. I'm not that good. And what's happening all over the world and in every country of the world, and what God has been doing every single day, week after week, year after year with this project, getting it in front of people, and people, 50 languages in 180 countries around the world, having their lives changed are these Jesus stories that we're telling in Texas and Utah. I'm not that good. And there is this point where I'm at the edge of the Red Sea, like I was on that day, where I get to the edge of the Red Sea and I've got nothing left. I can't do it. I can't do anything. Literally, I can't make the fog go away. That's not up to me. So I'm in this moment now where literally the only thing left, as my wife had said a couple months ago, was for the Red Sea to be parted, or in this case, the fog, so that we would know that it was God. So, wrapping up, I go into the makeup trailer where the actors are, and I say, not going to be able to do it, and I guess you're going back to Australia next week. Stay tuned. We'll see if maybe we can come back in a couple months and film this, but that's actually when the show is scheduled to be released. So it's not looking great. We'll do everything we can, but thanks guys for coming, but we gotta get going. And I go to open the door of the trailer, and I look out, and I see the other side of the lake. Clear as day. You can see the trees, and I go, is that the trees on the other side of the lake? I haven't seen those all day. I haven't seen anything more than 20 yards. And I step out, and I see the crews like running around, and I'm hearing people on the walkies. And the people down at the lake who were bringing the boat and putting the boat back onto the truck are yelling like, come back, come back, come back, come back. Because cars are literally pulling out of the parking lot. The crew is literally pulling out of the parking lot. They go, run, 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 get back to the lake. The fog, it's gone, it's gone. So we rush down to the lake, and I'm going to bring up a picture bring up the next picture if you don't mind. This is what it was 30 minutes before I was in the makeup trailer. So what you can see is, you can see that boat, this is from way back up on the shore, you can see that boat with I'm not a boat guy, I'm in Florida. What's that called? The staff? The mast? Yes. See? Got it. Not from Florida. The mast, is, you can see that, they're about to take that boat and put it back on the truck. So then this is us filming the scene. Go to the next picture. This is us filming the scene. This is probably 10 minutes after that took place, okay? So, yes. So, I'm just showing you, I'm just using that to show you what I saw when I looked out of the window and I saw across the lake to the trees. And so I get down to the boat, and we go, we gotta shoot, we gotta shoot, we gotta shoot. So we grab these actors. Got a 4-page scene to do. And my cinematographer, who is not a believer, doesn't believe in God, doesn't believe in any of these things. And I go, what I wanna do is I wanna shoot this scene, let's just at least get a couple shots of it, and then we can move to the next scene and just get a couple shots of that. Because normally when you shoot a scene, you shoot it 10, 12 different times, from 4 or 5 different angles. I'm like, let's just get it from 1 or 2 angles and then move on to the next scene. He just laughed, literally laughed. And one of his crew guys, when we were calling them back from their cars, one of his crew guys said, if we shoot a single scene today, and then he made some reference about it, he's going to eat, I'll eat 20 hot dogs, because that's not going to happen. And then we started filming the scene, and then they're teasing him about that, and he's like, all right, well, when I said we're going to shoot the other scene, just get a couple shots of that, he doubled it. They were all laughing. All of the crew guys were just laughing. And he says, we're not going to get any of the other scene because we don't have time. The sun's going down. When the sun goes down, you can't shoot daytime anymore because there's no sun. Science lesson for all of you students. So We film a couple shots. And my cinematographer goes, look, real quickly, I can just do another angle. So he does another angle. I go, listen, I don't want to run out of time to try to shoot that scene. He's like, Dallas, the other scene is on a boat. It's 50 yards into the water. It requires people standing there holding the boat. It requires them. Because it takes too much time. We don't have it. Let's just get this as much as we can. I'm like, I want to shoot that scene on the boat. I'm trying to thank God in advance like my wife told me to. He's like, just keeps laughing. Well, in half an hour, we did the entire scene 8 different ways. He's just flying around with his camera. So I'm like, do we have time to get at least one shot? He goes, yeah, I think we have time. Because the sun still seems to be up, we're fine. Go out to the water, get the boat set up. 2 actors, 4 pages. How are we going to get through all this? They go through it once. And it's great. We go through it a second time. It's great. Cinematographer's like, the sky is actually still quite bright. Let's just keep going. Goes to another angle, goes to another angle, goes to another angle. We end up getting all of the angles that we wanted. From that scene, we get all of the angles that we wanted from this scene in a total of 3 hours. Okay? Now here's the weird thing about it. My cinematographer, 2 weeks later, said this to me when we were having dinner. Again, this guy's not a believer at all. He's like, it was so strange. Because it was like the day kept extending. Because on our radar, when the sun goes, this tells you when the sun's going down. It's like the sun, literally on the radar said the sun was going down behind the trees, but yet it was still bright in the sky. Well, the reason was because of the clouds that had come all day with no rain, which, by the way, the fog was so thick, because the fish tournament could have still happened in the rain. But the fog was so thick they didn't do it, so they all left about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So once the fog cleared, no one was there. They all left for the day. So, because if the fog hadn't cleared, it would have been daylight from the beginning of the day. The tournament would have gone all day. So they stopped it and they left. So, 2 or 3 o'clock, the fog had lifted, but of course it's still overcast. And now the sunlight, as it's going behind the trees, is reflecting off of the fog cover and the cloud cover and giving us all the daylight we needed. So we get everything filmed in 3 hours. That would normally have taken us 10. Now, I didn't know this, and I wanted to share this with you because I actually didn't know this until like a month ago. This is from a woman who works for me. She's on our social media team. And she sent this to me. She said, the Lord has put it on my heart to tell you a really important part of that fog story that you may not know about. That day, when the fog was so bad and the crew was starting to pack up, Julie, who's my assistant who was with me on the set, Julie contacted the social media team. Said the fog issue was a very urgent situation and asked us to pray. So Mac, who's one of the other people on the team, Mac and I prayed on the phone together for God to blow the fog away so you guys could film. In fact, I stood outside, faced north, and blew really hard, half joking that because I was only 4 hours away, I could play some part in helping God. Yeah, we're a little weird, but that's why you love us. About 5 minutes later, literally, so when I went down to, I'll get to that in a second. About 5 minutes later, Julie reported back to us about the big wind that swept over the lake that completely cleared the fog. We are honored to give our loaves and fishes, which I'll explain tomorrow, and be prayer warriors with you and for you and to hold your arms up when needed. So when I had gone down to the lake, and I got there and they're like, the fog just went away. I'm like, how is that possible? They said we were about to put the boat up onto the dock, and literally, a gust of wind came, and the fog disappeared in less than 5 minutes. And one of our crew members, whose job it was, part of his job was manning the radar, who's the one who had told us the radar said the fog is going to be there till 8 o'clock. And so he done for the day. He's like, I've lived in Texas and I've seen fog for my whole life. I've never seen this happen before. It just literally went away in 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes. I've never seen it happen before. It's just bizarre. And that happened to me at the time when they were praying and blowing the fog. Now, look, here's the thing. I don't know for 100% certain if the timing of the wind blowing the fog away happened at the exact moment that the woman who works for me blew and was praying. I don't know all of what was going on in heaven during this time. I don't know how much of this was someone's prayer at someone's time. Okay? And I'm not telling you that life is filled with moments where if you just go out and you're trying to get the football game started and you just pray and you do that and the fog's all going to clear. I'm not saying that life works just that way in every situation. But I do know that the chosen is in God's hands and has been from day one. And from day one, these kinds of stories have been happening over and over again. Now, why would God do that? Why wouldn't God just on that day have it not be foggy to begin with? And have there not be a fish tournament to begin with? Why not? Just have the day go as planned. The outcome would have been the exact same. What you see in season 2 of those scenes, those 2 scenes that we filmed, would have looked the exact same if we filmed them as planned with our normal schedule as doing it in the last 3 hours. Why would God do that? Why would God, quote unquote, you could even say he was toying with me. It's almost, I think some people would even say, is God just playing a game? Why would God just play a game like that? Well, I go back to this Red Sea moment, where God takes you to the edge of the Red Sea so that when the waters part, you know it was him. Now, that's something my wife said to me. It was really cool, and I was thrilled to tell her when it was all said and done that she was right. But she didn't think that herself. She wasn't saying that of her own accord. It's not her lesson that she just invented. We will pursue them, and I will get glory over Pharaoh. And I will get glory over Pharaoh. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I have gotten glory over Pharaoh. He says that 3 times. It's clearly very important. It's like he was saying to Moses, and just by the way, this is about me getting glory. So when I talk to you about how the show has gotten 180 countries, has been one of these huge media projects, one of the biggest projects in the last several years, I mean it when I say it was birthed from failure. I'm really not that good. My previous film had completely bombed. I didn't know if I was going to make another movie. And then when we got to that point where we didn't know how or where or if we were going to be able to shoot season 2, I didn't do it. I didn't build that set. I didn't get it. I didn't hand the DVD to the guy who was on vacation, who's in his 90s, who happened to watch it, and call up the other guys who were all also on vacation and convince them to do this. I certainly didn't part any fog to make that day possible. God takes me on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis to the edge of the Red Sea so that when the waters part, we know it's him. And you're not doing a TV show right now. You might not be in a situation where literal fog is covering the lake and you need it to go away and there's nothing left for you to do. But I know that either right now or sometime soon in the future, you're going to experience something that I wish I would have learned when I was in high school. That I wish that I didn't have to keep learning over and over and over again now that I'm in my 40s. You're going to learn that whatever that situation is, whether it's a marriage, or whether it's a relationship, or whether it's friendship, or a family situation, or a financial crisis, or whatever it is, God doesn't promise that everything's going to work out perfectly all the time. He doesn't promise that you will then become wealthy because you are not having financial struggles. He's not promised that, oh, you will now be in this perfect relationship with this person, even though right now you are unhappy. It's always about you. It's always about getting glory. It's always about you surrendering and saying, okay, I've gotten as far as I can go. I'm at the edge of the Red Sea. The only thing left is for the waters to part. The only thing left is for God to do something. That doesn't mean you don't still go to the edge of the Red Sea. You still have your part. You still get there. But that edge of the Red Sea moment, if you can get to the place where you are comfortable there, I promise you, if you spend, starting now, the rest of your life, being comfortable at that Red Sea moment, in that moment where I was standing in the middle of the lake, that picture you saw earlier where I'm standing there with my arms folded at my lowest point of the chute to that point. If you can be comfortable there, and you can actually have the faith of my wife to go, you know what, I'm going to start thinking God in advance, because he's going to do something. And I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but he's going to do something. And maybe it's just about me. Maybe it's just about me learning to surrender and worship him more and give more to him. But I'm going to thank him now because he's going to do something. If you can get to that point where you are comfortable at the edge of the Red Sea, it's a superpower. It will change your life. And because God keeps doing that to me on The Chosen, I am comfortable now at the edge of the Red Sea. I'm comfortable saying, you know what? The Chosen is yours. I will do my part. I will do everything I can. I will get to the edge of the Red Sea. I will trudge there. That wasn't easy either. I will get there. When there's nothing left for me to do, I will surrender. And I will be comfortable letting you do whatever you're going to do. I promise you, get comfortable in that moment. It will become a superpower and recognize it's about getting glory. He does those things sometimes on purpose. Sometimes you go, where are you, God? Why did you allow this? Sometimes he actually gets you there. Sometimes he's the one who does it. Sometimes he's the one who puts the fog on the lake all day long so that you get to the point where you go, I got nothing. Get comfortable saying, I got nothing. That's all I got for you tonight. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.